But increasingly, Mr. Speaker, people feel endangered in their own communities. I saw this in rural Alberta, where people didn't even lock their doors 10 years ago. Now they worry about burglars breaking in, about thieves siphoning fuel and copper wire on their properties. In big cities, people are terrorized by story after story of increasing crime. And Mr. Speaker, these Liberals love to say that that is just sensationalism and that all the brainy experts will tell you crime is down. I'm sorry, that doesn't work either. Violent crime up 55%, gun crime up 130%, extortion up to 330%, homicides 29%, hate crimes 258%, sexual assault 76%, auto theft up 25%, overdoses up 152% under the catch and release Liberal justice system. All of this happened as a direct result of Liberal laws that turn criminals loose on our streets so that they can offend and offend and re-offend with no consequences. We warned of this when these bills were first passed, but the Liberals went ahead anyway. And every single member of this Liberal caucus that was here before the last election voted for all of these laws, voted to keep them in place, including the new Liberal Justice Minister, whose very appointment is a signal that this Prime Minister is not serious about reversing the damage his party has done. The fact that he would name Justin Trudeau's worst minister to be in charge of crime shows that he is happy to continue with the disastrous criminal justice policies that got us into this mess. This minister was in charge of immigration when population growth went up 300%. He single-handedly destroyed our immigration system, overcrowding housing, our job market, and our healthcare system. Then they moved him over to housing, where he delivered the most expensive housing costs in Canada's history and in all of the G7. And as a punishment for all of this failure, the Liberal Prime Minister now appoints him to be in charge of crime. So you can imagine the results you will get. And what have they done together ever since? They have they haven't done nothing. They've done worse than nothing. They have obstructed action. Obstructionism by the Liberal Party to keep in place the failed laws that are unleashing chaos on our streets. Conservatives said in the spring, right after the election, let us immediately reverse catch and release Liberal laws and lock up the criminals that the government had been turning free. Instead, the Prime Minister said, let's go on vacation. And what has been the consequence of that decision? Real human costs. In Kelowna, 15 people were arrested 1,300 times in 1 year. That's almost 100 arrests per offender per year. In Penticton, there's one guy named Levi who does so much crime that police told me that when he's out of prison, he raises the crime rate for the entire city. One guy. In Vancouver, 40 offenders were arrested 6,000 times. That's 150 arrests per offender per year. How is this possible? Well, they're automatically released under Liberal Law C-75, which requires judges to release the offender at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions, and I quote. Here are the stories of the catch and release system. Miles Sanderson stabbed 11 people to death and injured another 18 at the James Smith Cree Nation Reserve and in nearby Weldon, Saskatchewan. This is an offender who had already been arrested for 46 prior offenses, including things like armed robbery and assault. He also had a pattern of domestic abuse before he was released. Matthew Macquarie was sentenced to life in prison for stabbing Emerson Sprung to death and burying him in a shallow grave in Meaford, Ontario Park on May of 2020. Macquarie, who had an extensive criminal history dating back to 2001, was in jail in the months leading up to Sprung's murder on separate charges, but was released at the height of COVID. Tyrone Samard killed his sister and attacked several others on Hollow Water First Nation in Manitoba on September 4th, 2025. He'd been charged with violent offenses, including assault with a weapon, sexual assault, sexual interference, and invitation to sexual touching, all offenses that happened before his release, and from alleged instances going back over 8 years. He was out on bail when he carried out his attack. In March, a suspect in a trio of unprovoked stabbings was found to have been previously released on bail. On August 31st, 25-year-old Daniel Senecal was arrested and charged by Niagara Police after a violent sexual assault on a 3-year-old child who was in her own bed, the place where she should have been safest, Mr. Speaker. He was out on release, even though he had already assaulted a 12-year-old. All of these scumbags should have been in jail. And if Conservative laws had been in place, they would have been in jail. Right. Unfortunately, this Prime Minister thought his summer vacation was more important. And even since he has returned, he and his Justice Minister have been obstructing our efforts to lock up these criminals and change the law. Once again, if the Liberals are not prepared to reverse their own mistakes, then get out of the way and let Conservatives make Canadians safe again. We do this not out of hatred for the criminal, but out of love for the victims, out of determination to make our communities safe again. We as Conservatives want to restore a country where hard work pays off with beautiful homes, nutritious food, safe streets, where people are united under a proud flag. We've set 4 main priorities for our return of Parliament: stronger take-home pay, safer streets, secure borders, and a self-reliant nation. We are here to oppose the bad the government does, expose their corrupt behavior, but also propose solutions that will improve the lives of the Canadian people. And we call on the government to stop the obstruction, put aside the partisanship, work with us on the solutions that all Canadians have asked for, and bring about the real change that Canadians are demanding. We will put our country ahead of party as always, because we are Canadians first. We love our country and we want to restore its promise. Thank you very much.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. La députée de Shefford.
The honourable member for Shefford. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Leader of the Opposition for his speech. Well, there's something we agree on at the Bloc. We are also a partner in terms of agreeing that the rising crime is a major concern. We need to change how we react to this issue. But in terms of another figure, in 2024 alone, 273 criminal files were set aside in Quebec because of the Jordan decision. Point of order, Member for Drummond. People are having conversations during questions and comments. Could they please do that outside of the chamber? I'd like to thank the member for Drummond. Of course, if the parliamentary secretary would like to talk to the member across the way, I would ask them to take these discussions outside of the chamber. Going back to the member for Shefford to complete her questions. Did you finish? Member for Shefford. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Leader of the Opposition for his speech. The Bloc also finds the rise in crime concerning, a major issue. So we will be partners in terms of discussion around that issue. But there's another figure that is very concerning. In 2024 alone, 275 cases were dropped in Quebec because of the Jordan decision. Mr. Speaker, to give victims and Canadians greater trust in our system, the Jordan's decision needs to be reformed. Thank you. The Leader of the Official Opposition. Very good question, Mr. Speaker. And I share the concerns of the honourable member with the Jordan decision that allowed some criminals to even skip trials in prison. But how come it's taking so long for trials to occur? It's because there are a small group of criminals that are being recycled in our legal system time after time. How come they're being recycled? Because they're released. If we keep them in prison, they won't be able to be released to commit another crime, to be arrested, and to wait for a trial and use the resources of the court. So let's keep these violent criminals in prison with the three strikes principle. And these criminals will stay in prison for at least 10 years without parole or other types of release. It will unclog our legal system and allow them to conduct trials rather than just reviewing the same criminals over and over.
Mr. Speaker, so that we don't have to recycle the same group of criminals again and again through the system and cause delays. 3 strikes, no bail, parole, probation, or house arrest, at least 10 years behind bars.
Comments, questions et commentaires. The honourable member for Bruce Grey, Owen Sound.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question to the honourable leader of the opposition is first off to say thank you for raising the case of Emerson Sprung, somebody from my own riding that was murdered by an individual out on bail. But I know I've been hearing for years now from my local law enforcement in my riding about the need for this bail reform and the fact that we got to keep these repeat violent offenders. I know the leader of the opposition has been around the country over the last few years talking to police associations, police chiefs. Could he please expand on what he's hearing from the police, the people that are out day after day keeping our Canadian citizens safe, yet facing these criminals and rearresting every single one of them? Thank you.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
First of all, thank you to that member for his incredible and distinguished service to the Canadian Armed Forces. A very distinguished record. And moving to the other heroes who also wear the uniform are police officers. They tell me they are exhausted with arresting the same offenders over and over again, and they say that the criminals laugh at them. They say that often criminals now confess to their crimes in the backseat of the car because they don't care if they get convicted, knowing that there will be no penalty whatsoever. And this is the direct result of Liberal laws C-75 requiring the immediate release of the offender at the earliest opportunity and under the least onerous conditions, and I quote, and C-5, the house arrest law. What I say to those police officers is that we want you to have less return customers. And so we'll bring in 3 strikes, you're out, to keep these dangerous offenders in the slammers. Lock them up, throw away the key.
Yeah. Questions and comments, questions and commentaires. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Governing House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. No one does it better than the leader of the Conservative Party. He understands very clearly. Let's get the applause afterwards. It's the way you need it.
Order. The Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, when it comes to Conservative Party policy and this leader's approach on crime and safety in the community, the first priority is not Canadians. No. It's raising cash for the Conservative Party. We see numerous emails that go out saying slogans on crime and what the Conservatives are going to do, all in an attempt to raise money. That's what it is, a cash cow for the Conservatives. We have a Prime Minister, a newly elected Prime Minister that is looking at what Canadians are saying and has made a solemn commitment to Canadians to bring in bail reform before the end of the year. My question to the leader of the Conservative Party, will he put aside his cash ambitions and fundraising and make a commitment to Canadians, as the Prime Minister has, that he will at the very least allow bail reform legislation to go to committee if it is introduced this year before the end of the year? Will he make that commitment to Canadians today?
Bravo.
The Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, allow me to begin by thanking the member for his kind words at the very beginning. He stated half a sentence that was right, and that proves that that proves that even a broken clock is right twice a day, Mr. Speaker. But for the rest of the day, he gets it wrong. You know, he says that he asked me if I would be prepared to fast-track the passage of bail reform. Where is it? He wants me to fast-track the passage of a law his government hasn't even introduced, Mr. Speaker. Has he totally lost his marbles, or did he mean to say that he would fast-track the law that Conservatives are bringing forward. 3 strikes, you're out. Let's put partisanship aside. Let's pass that law now so that we can lock up the worst criminals and throw away the key.